insights into managing yourself, especially in a constantly connected age, is to be very aware of the impact that technology has on you. So many people, we just use all these tools without thinking. We scroll on Instagram for hours, we check our emails all day, every day, and we never stop and think about whether or not this is the best way to use these tools and also how these tools are making us feel. I think what's missing is intentionality. We assume that because these tools are all around us that we should be using them all the time, when in reality, they're really powerful and can be quite positive if we use them carefully and if we put some thought behind them. One of the most annoying things on the internet is something that I call productivity propaganda. And you'll see this across social media, and it's any form of content that romanticizes or glorifies overwork. So you'll see it in people bragging about how late they are staying at the office, how little sleep they've gotten, how exhausted they are, and most frequently, how busy they are. So if you've asked a friend, how's it going? Like, I'm so busy. This is productivity propaganda because it's insinuating that being so busy and not sleeping enough and being exhausted all the time is actually cool. So we need to reframe this, because what we're finding, as you might assume, that being creative, which is a core part of being innovative and strategic and coming up with great ideas and launching new projects, requires you to have unstructured time to think, and unstructured time to let your brain rest and recover and recuperate. So if you're going to talk about productivity, we have to start redefining it by including periods of intentional recovery as a part of the productive process. When you take a break, you're not working. When you're taking a break, you're actually creating the space for your brain to think about all the stuff that you need to think about and to come up with these new ideas. I think that a lot of our ideas of success have become too linked with overwork. So we look at people who work really hard, and we've taken this idea of working hard, but we've taken it to the extreme, where now it's not just enough to work hard, you have to work yourself until exhaustion. And if you do that, then you're deserving of your success. Now here's the interesting thing. There's this concept called the American Dream, which is actually available and has been exported to countries all over the world, where simply it's this idea that you believe that if you work hard, you'll be successful. The flip side of that is that if you believe that you're not successful, you internalize this idea that it must be because you're not working hard enough. And so people mistakenly think if they're going to be successful, they just have to keep pushing harder. But what happens is that they end up getting exhausted, end up getting tired, they end up making mistakes, and they end up performing at a lesser level than they would if they had just rested. So I think we need to reclaim our definition of success and look at what are people creating, what is the end result, and not congratulate each other for being more tired than your colleague or your best friend. I think that for organizations who are interested in getting rid of overwork culture, you have to be very specific about your expectations, for example, of how people use technology. There need to be really clear guidelines about when people are expected to respond, when people are expected to be online, the time that it takes for someone to get back to you. Because what ends up happening is that even if you have a policy on paper that says, okay, maybe after 7 p.m. you don't have to answer emails or you don't have to answer phone calls or whatnot. If people aren't obeying it, if someone in charge, if there's a leader generally in the organization who isn't paying attention to this policy, everyone will then follow that leader instead of adhering to the policy. So I think it's very important for leaders to walk the walk and to actively demonstrate consistently with their actions and with what they prioritize and signal to employees that overworking, being exhausted, not sleeping is not beneficial to the organization and not beneficial to the customers that you're trying to serve. One of the biggest myths that frustrate me when I talk to executives or organizations is that everyone is always obsessed with the future. Everyone wants to know, what's the future going to bring? What are robots going to do in the future? What's AI going to look like in the future? And I find this really problematic because you find that people are thinking about the future in this strange, abstract way, as though one day they're going to wake up and it's going to be the future. And we spend so much time thinking about these possible future states that we ignore one of the most important indicators of what that future is going to look like, which is what are the decisions, what are the policies, what are the technologies that we're using today? Because those technologies are going to give us the most clear indication of which path we're going to take. So I think that instead of being so oriented towards the future, that it's good to have an eye on that horizon, but to be very aware and conscious of what is happening in the present. Because the present is where we are accountable, the present is something we can impact directly, and the present is something that we all have to be very concerned about, because the decisions that we make today are taking us step by step to the future, and we need to make sure that we're on a path where we get to a future that we all actually want to live in.